Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gathering Movement interview series. I am here today with a fellow New Jerseyan. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, Richard, yeah, go Jersey. So full of snow. Holy cow.
Yeah, what's so interesting though is we really do see everyone come together, like neighbors helping neighbors. Human nature and Mother Nature really has this ability to connect us.
It really does. What I love about a good snowstorm, especially like the one we got, and for those people listening that don't like the snow, you're probably not going to like this, but give it a moment, is it slows everything down. And I really do believe like we are going so fast. And sometimes we're slow to pick up on some of the lessons the universe or Mother Nature or God, whomever wants to provide for us. But we were going so fast before the pandemic. The pandemic tried to slow us down. A lot of people are thirsty for like, is life back to normal? I'm like, I don't know. I don't want it to be back to normal. I want to create a new, better normal. So one that appreciates the fact that maybe slow is the new fast. Like the best way to make real connections is to slow down and breathe a little bit more. So I love a good snowstorm for that reason, but you're so spot on, Bridget. Like, neighbors came out. I saw neighbors I haven't seen in months. I was like, do you still live here? They're like, yeah, do you? I go, well, I'm shoveling. So that's all good stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm excited to have you here today, not only because you are a fellow New Jerseyan, but it was just such a pleasure to talk to you. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago on the phone, and your story just hit home with me, my life, my family, my mom, and some of her injuries that she sustained many years ago. So I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this time, and thank you for doing your work in the world. It's awesome to see.
Oh, thanks. I do believe, and we'll get into it. I survived my accident for a reason. And each day I get to show up living that reason. And it's also, as I told someone actually earlier today on Facebook, she posted something, I responded, and I said, I'm here today because so many people came to our aid, and every day I get to wake up and do this thing called life. It is a thank you for saving my life way back when. And I want to make sure I'm putting good juju out in the universe as a way to say, hey, you know what? The work you did 20 years ago was worth it. Like it's a positive thing and it's a ripple effect. And so, yeah, no, I'm psyched to be on. And yeah, lovely conversation with you prior to the show and a lot of parallels. So yeah, like totally psyched to be here.
A lot. I would love for you to share your life before the accident. What was going on in your life, the accident, where you are now?
Yeah, so life before, I would say really typical, almost for a lot, like maybe not that remarkable, like living in New Jersey, hustle and grind, corporate life. One new daughter, one was about to come a little bit later, and so we, we sort of had that life, and then we had our second child, and then we're still grinding it. And I was working my way up the corporate ladder, and I was really chasing happiness, like living a consumer lifestyle. Like you need to get all this stuff. Like you'll be happy when you get the bigger house or you do a reno on your house, or you'll be happy when you get the car, or you get promoted or make more money. And you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And keep in mind, I was doing all this before social. Now everyone's our neighbor because social media allows us to have everyone as our neighbor. But back then I was sort of just comparing myself to like work colleagues, people in the neighborhood, but there was this chase for happiness. And I never learned how to like process stress and just be able to release it. What I was doing was just sort of packing it down, saying like, okay, I'll handle it later. I got things to do. Because when you're on your hamster wheel, you got things to do, but you don't go anywhere. And that was my life. In a lot of ways, a lot of people say it was a really good life. The photo for the holiday card looked great. Marriage was great. Daughters were healthy. So you're like, you're living the dream. You got a good job. You're making more money than you thought coming out of college. You got a good marriage, pretty family, the whole thing. But I was like, inside, not so wealthy inside. I was stressed. I never really thought I was enough. That's what was fueling my chase. Like, if I only get here, then I'll be enough. I've made it. And then I can stop chasing. So that was it, and I had an identity as an athlete. So growing up, that was sort of like how I identified myself, as an athlete, being fit, as a cyclist, all that stuff. So I'd say pretty typical to a lot of other dudes in New Jersey, or a lot of other guys around the country, around the world, like chasing after it and not necessarily ever catching it.
The word of when comes up so many times. It's like, I'll be happy when this happens. I'll be happy when I get this promotion, this house addition, this raise. And I think you point out something so beautifully here, that it's not about the chase. And what if we could simply reflect on what we have right now? Because there's a lot there.
There's a ton there. Like, before my accident and all that, like, I knew nothing about gratitude. I knew nothing about mindfulness. I really thought it was like a hippy dippy thing. Like, yeah. That's what people in California do. They eat grape nuts. Like, who does that? Like, too woo-woo, which is our body armor. Like, when we know something's real, but we're just like, it's woo-woo, so we push it away. But yeah, I never thought I had enough, because you're always comparing yourself to other people who seem to have a lot more. And the truth is, a lot of the people that have like the beautiful Instagram filtered life, many of them are not necessarily happy from the inside out. And I've been able to learn that and discover that along my journey here, because I've had a chance to be in their company on a couple of different things. I was like, whoa, well, that's a big surprise. But yeah, they're growing up, and my early professional life, there was a ton of chase, a lot of comparison, and I never had the ability. I didn't know how to do it, how to release the stress. I was just repressing it. And eventually it just kept on bottling up and building up and building up and building up. And after a while, it's got to go somewhere. And then it went somewhere.
Why do we think that we have these experiences in our life? Why do we have these moments of kind of being brought to the lowest of the low, or even being brought to the highest of the high? Why do you think that we have these moments as humans?
I think they're like the final call for you. Now, for me, again, whether you want to label it as God, universe, Mother Nature, choose your pick, right? I was getting messages beforehand like, hey, Michael. There were maybe a little whisper, maybe a little bit of volume, but I was too busy grinding it away on my hamster wheel to pay attention. I'm like, yeah, universe, yeah. I'm too busy. Got to keep chasing. And I think what the universe did was like, dude, we've been sending you signs for the last 10 years and you keep on ignoring us. So we're going to give you something that you can't ignore. It's going to stop you in your tracks, figuratively and literally. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a wake-up call. And so I think like these low moments, again, a lot of times, like in the internet world, we paint with broad brushes. So I don't mean to say like everyone, but for a lot of folks, we're just, including me back then, I wasn't living my life with much awareness. So I couldn't see a lot. I had a lot of blind spots, as most of us do. And when the universe was like, hey, Michael, I was like, yeah, too busy. I got this thing to do. I gotta get this project done. Like, this is it. I got to be on my BlackBerry. That was BlackBerry days. Like, so, which is really crazy. We're reminiscent about that last night, actually, as a family, like how my youngest was like, yeah, your BlackBerry was so cool. That game, that breakout game. She was like, she goes, that's the best game ever. I go, okay. So that's pretty cool. But so I think the universe gave me like a really big one. I think sometimes the high ones, Bridget, you mentioned, like, why do we have the high ones? I think those are two to say, hey, listen, check your ego. Don't get so high. Don't have the hubris, because you might fall, right? So keep it measured, keep it within like a range. Like you can have moments of celebration, yes, but don't let your ego start driving everything. Like, and then, hey, that's what, like, a lot of times with social media, like the likes and the followers and the engagement and all that, it's like one dopamine hit after another, and it's all like ego. The other day I got recognized for something. I was in this summit, kickoff of the year summit type of thing. 25 speakers, people voted on their 10 favorite speakers. And so I was fortunate enough to be part of the top 10. And for a moment, it was like, oh, that felt good. And then it was like, hey, ego, like, it's time to chill. Like, it's just a moment. Making it about yourself, not making it about like the thing that you want to do to connect with people. So I think some of those high moments too are a chance to say, whoa, pause, take a breath, reflect on why you want to show up the way you want to show up. For my accent at the low, yeah, I think just the universe was saying, like, listen, dude, like, you keep on ignoring us. We care about you. We're going to give you something you can't ignore. And that's not the case for everyone. Again, I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but certainly I believe that was the case for my situation.
Yeah. And the way I see it is that I believe that we signed up for this human experience to have experiences and to have emotions and to have experiences. It's just that we never got a book that taught us how to life, how to do it.
Yeah. So true. So true. We just try, like, it's like, for any Seinfeld fans out there, I know it's a dated reference. It's like the Penske file. It's like, here it is. Like, go figure it out. And you're like, hey, if you get some good mentorship, some good parenting guidance, then maybe you get a little bit of a head start or a little bit of a boost along the way. But for most of us, we're trying to figure this out on our own. And the world's just getting more and more complex. It's harder. We need each other to get through this thing. And since the brain is hardwired for survival, it's so easy to go negative so quickly. I was just talking to someone before I dialed in around this whole concept of like whether or not the things that have the life experiences, Bridget, that you just referenced, do they happen to you or do they happen for you? And this was a key thing. Like, after I was in the hospital, after, getting hit, I was having a very low moment playing the victim. And one of my mentors called and said, hey, listen, Michael, I get it. I understand why you're all like pouty and angry and revengeful and all that jazz. But he said, all your events in your life are neutral until you label them. And I was like, what? And he was like, all the events in your life are neutral until you label them. You give things meaning. Nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. So can I ask you, did this happen to you or did it happen for you? In that moment, the answer was, this happened to me. Life is unfair. Like, it shouldn't have happened. He's like, well, I just want to leave you with this question because I got to run. Phone call was ending. Maybe it happened for you. So noodle that. How did this event happen for you, not to you? And I was like, oh, this is some Jedi mind trick. I was like, what's up with that? But you know what? He's a great mentor, still in my life. And he was right. All the events in your life are neutral until you label them. And a really great question, like when you're feeling down, is like, especially like the global pandemic, is this happening to us or is it happening for us? I believe it's happening for us. It's putting things in front of us that the universe is saying, hey, pay attention to this stuff. We've been telling you about this for eons. It's time to start listening. It's time to start taking some better action. So that's how I view it.
I appreciate that reflection. And it makes sense why that phone call with your mentor stood out so much in your own journey. And I just like look at the title of this conversation that you chose and that you've talked about, how to prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day. And it sounds like that phone call right there, and I'm sure many other little moments along the journey allowed you to say, wow, like if we look at this with neutrality, we're able to actually transform this into a completely different experience that's happening for us.
Yeah, that was a big phone call. There were a lot of little moments, and I believe this about life. You have a lot of little moments. Sometimes you get some medium moments, you get some big lightning bolt moments. But that call was huge, just to really shift my mindset and start looking at my situation differently. But it also invited me to look at myself differently, like to be honest with myself, like, how are you showing up? Because how you show up, there's a ripple to that. Like, after all, we're all just energy. Everything around us, the chair that we're sitting in, the desk that we're at, they're all energy. You light a fire, they release energy. We're energy. It's how we used to communicate before we came up with grunting and vocabulary. It's how animals communicate in a lot of ways. Your dog or cat will pick up on the fact of storms coming well before, anyone else will. So we're all energy. And I had to get really clear with myself, like, how was I showing up? What ripple was I sending out into the world? And we get to choose that. That's one thing. Like, when life is so uncertain, one of the things that can give us a sense of control, because we do desperately thirst for that, is, well, we can decide how we wish to show up in this moment. We always have control over that. And, the conversation I had with myself, because it all comes down to that, was I was showing up okay, but I wasn't showing up great. And if I was going to be the husband I wanted to be and the father I wanted to be and get out of the hospital back home and really use this moment as a for me type of moment, I had to start showing up differently. I had to come to my rehab and everything else with a different level of energy so it would resonate differently. And that phone call was a big step in making that shift happen.
Such a good reminder for all of us. And why I love these interviews is that these are things that we've talked about before, we've heard, but to have it just reiterated, reflected to us is always nourishing and new in its own experience.
Yeah. There's a guy I used to follow back in the day called Zig Ziglar. I learned sales from him.
Yep.
And he has a quote like, motivation is like bathing. It works best if you do it daily. And so I always love that. I think a lot of these lessons, because there's so much noise in the system, and there's so much fear and worry and anxiety, like cortisol, adrenaline producing emotion, that some of these things that have been with us since the beginning of time that work so well. I think we need a consistent reminder about those, because it's so easy to get hijacked and hung up on like that little thing. And then we lose some of the daily principles of just like hit pause, take a breath, reflect. How do you wish to show up? Gratitude, awareness. Again, like slowing down and using it as a way to go faster. So I think we can't have too much of it, especially now because we're going through so much. We need this to come together so we can create that better normal. I think that we all desperately want to create.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I just love the way that you're verbalizing this and sharing it. I realize we actually haven't talked about what happened, your story.
Yeah, we really haven't. We've
No,
sort of alluded to it. People are like, what actually happened?
Like, what's the secret?
So we'll end the mystery. I'll share what happened. So we had a company meeting out in New Mexico, again, based in New Jersey. Avid cyclist my whole life. I decided to bring my bike out to New Mexico for the meeting. Guys brought out their golf clubs. I was like, I'm going to bring out my bike, cross New Mexico off the states I've ridden my bike, which I now have done. And on the fourth lap of a loop I created out the back of the hotel, it was like one of those fancy pants resorts, golf club spa type of thing. And then up the main drag, 2-mile loop. I was going to do it 10 times. on the fourth lap, I came around and a Ford Explorer had crossed into my lane fully, going about 40 miles an hour, and hit me head on. And I remember, as we've talked about, Bridget, almost everything about that morning, the sound of me hitting his windshield, the sound I made when I went into the grill, and the screech of his brakes, and the thud I made when I came to the asphalt below. And then I got knocked unconscious, as you would imagine. I regained consciousness, and I asked the EMTs the only question another cyclist, your mom can totally appreciate this, could ask, is like, how's my bike? And they're like, your bike's fine. They were totally lying to me. My bike was destroyed. I was destroyed. I knew the energy in the moment that my life was in question. Worst pain ever. They called the medevac to take me to Albuquerque, the only trauma one center in the state. And when they put me on the helicopter to take me there, I promised myself, if I live, I would stop chasing happiness. And again, it was one of those bargains you make in those moments. I had no idea how to stop that. I was like, like, whomever is listening, I'll promise to stop now. Just save me, And I remember every minute of that 19 minutes flying to Albuquerque, went into the trauma center, met my doctor, met my anesthesiologist, and then I don't remember anything for the next 5 days. I was in the ICU. I broke a whole bunch of everything. Upper body, major concussion, glass all over my face, broke both legs. The big injury though was the left femur shattered, because that was the one that really hit the truck. And when the bone shattered, it lacerated the femoral artery of my left leg. So I was bleeding out in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, which is actually somewhere, but was nowhere to me. And the doctors really don't know how I survived. They told my wife, had I been 10 years older or not in shape, I would have died before I got to the hospital, because I lost so much blood. So they're like, we don't know how you did it. And they really don't know how I'm back riding my bike and all that jazz. They're like, based on your injuries, and this is what they told me when I came out of the ICU, based on your injuries, you're going to have a really tough life, a lifetime of dependency, limitations, probably not going to walk that well ever again. You're probably never going to get back on your bike. And all that chasing happiness stuff went out the window. I just got pissed off and angry because the driver had a revoked license. It shouldn't have happened, all that jazz. This was happening to me, right? All that. And then I got that phone call, several weeks later. And then it's been like a 1% better mindset every day since. Every day, wake up, grab my water, ask myself my questions to frame my day. One question is, how can I be 1% better today than I was yesterday? And that was the stuff that fueled me through my recovery. Throw in some mindfulness, awareness, gratitude, connection. But I'm only here today because so many people came to our aid back then. I used the term of Peloton. It's a group of cyclists in a bike race. And so I had my own Peloton, my recovery Peloton, to help me cross the finish line. Yeah, I put in a lot of work, physical and emotional labor, but if it wasn't for my wife and my family and my doctors and friends and strangers, I am not the person I am today. There's no doubt in my mind. And that's the way life is, that we can't do these things by ourselves. We need each other. We need connection. And this year will be 20 years since that accident. And I'm going to ride my bike across country. We're going to call it the Pause, Breathe, and Reflect Tour. And it's one big 45 days of thank yous to everyone that helped us along the way over the 20 years. It's also a message about having the right mindset and resilience and community and trying to make the impossible possible. And we're going to raise some money for some good causes and really sort of celebrate life and what's possible when you have the right ingredients in your stew. And because no one thought we'd be at this moment. Like, they were like, you're never riding your bike again. You're gonna, like, my identity was totally shattered that day. And someone asked me Sunday, it's like, hey, is it back to normal? Like, as we mentioned before, I'm like, people used to ask me that all the time. Like, when I get out of the hospital, they're like, are you back to normal? I'm like, screw normal. I don't want normal. I'm like, I want something better. Like, so to answer your question, I know you're asking out of the kindness of your heart. You want to see how I am. But you know what? Normal left the building along with Elvis. I'm creating something new. I'm creating something better. And I think this moment in time for us, 2020, COVID, whatever, how you want to frame it, 2020 to 2021, because it's going to be with us all year. It's like this is happening for us to create a better normal. We just need critical mass to be willing to put in the work to do that. And I'm hoping enough people want to do that.
Well, we're on the same wavelength, especially about community. And that's really the mission of this interview series. It's called The Gathering Movement because we know that we can't do this on our own. I know I can't do this on my own. You know, you can't do this on your own. And in my own life, I've seen so much of my life transform when I'm surrounded by the people who can uplift me, support me, you know, see through my own BS and keep me going. And it's just, I'm so grateful that we do have people that realize it's about coming together, not separating.
Yeah, you know, it's, you know, whether you want to call it the media or whatever, you know, there's money to be made in like dividing people because you can create your little niche, right? You know, like, they even tell entrepreneurs that like we got to niche it, you know, it's like just these people. And from a pure business perspective, I totally get that. I get the fundamental, logical, rational thinking there. But we have so much in common. Like luckily I've been able to travel the world since my accident. You know, been to Asia, been to the Middle East, been to Europe, South America. Obviously, we'll ride through the U.S. And one thing is true: it's like everyone wants just a good life. They want to create a life for their kids if they happen to have kids that's better than their life. They want to love each other. They want to come together. You know, they want all that. So we have so much more that in common. We fuel the divisiveness. We fuel the reptilian part of our brain, fight, flight. Like it's on overdrive. It's been we've overcorrected, and we just need to, again, I think, you know, pause, breathe, and reflect, and just sort of, you know, chill and see each other maybe for the first time again. And that's what I hope the ride across country will do, because I'm going to take video and interview some people along the way. It's like, listen, we're going to ride through blue states. We're going to ride through red states. But, you know, people just, you know, people want to live a good life. And if we have the right mindset, an infinite mindset, that we can all live a good life, and that there's more to go around than just the scarcity mindset that so many people peddle in, then I think we can really create that better tomorrow. And my hope is that actually, it's not even a hope. I do believe that this moment known as 2020 and 2021 with COVID, more people are awake to what type of life they want to create. And we have critical mass. It's one of those things that we got to be like patiently urgent. You know, it's going to be day in and day out, but we're going to be urgently doing the work each and every day. It's not going to be change overnight. We want change overnight because we finally woke up to the fact, oh my God, our life, the way we were doing it, not so great. So we want change to happen right now. We want that easy pass, but it's going to take the effort day in and day out, 1% better. We can take that mindset, collective critical mass. Things will be better by the time that the year's out. I'm pretty confident in that.
I agree. The greatest mirror, I think, that has ever been held to society in the last year or so. So yeah, what times to be doing the work that you're doing in the world, bringing people together, inspiring, helping people not turn a bad moment into a bad day or a bad life, because there is so much to be grateful for. How can people continue to follow you and stay in tune with what you're up to, your world, all that?
Great question. So the best way, they can go to michaelobrienshift.com, one word, michaelobrienshift.com. They can read a little bit more about the story. They can sign up for the blog post that I do every Sunday. There too, that you'll find all the social media handles that we all have. you pick the one that best suits you. I know we're, Bridget, we're on Instagram together, so I love what you post. But yeah, I would go there first, michaelobrienshift.com, and you can discover a little bit more about the accident and the whole pause, breathe, and reflect thing that I've referenced a couple times today.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing.
Thanks for having me. It was great. And I'm glad the universe sort of put us together. It's fantastic.
Me too. Me too. Well, thank you, Michael. I hope you have an amazing day. And thank you, everyone who supports this mission. And just to share with everyone one more time, the mission of the Gathering movement is to revolutionize the media streams, the inputs, the technology, the thoughts that we put into our mind. And it's here to bring forth inspiring stories of people like Michael who want community and we're really going to change the world one person, one voice, one story at a time. So thank you.